Hi, in this session we are going to multiply complex numbers. So we have two examples. The first one is let's return to the numbers we used previously, and we're going to just write this as simplify. Simplify, the numbers were 3 minus 5i, that was one of our complex numbers. We're going to multiply that with our other complex number of negative 1 minus 2i. So when we multiply these, it works as you probably expected, in that we distribute the 3 through the parentheses. So 3 times negative 1, that's negative 3. 3 times negative 2i is minus 6i. And then we use another color, and we distribute the next piece in the parentheses. So negative 5i times negative 1, that's going to be minus, that's going to be a plus 5i. And then negative 5i times negative 2i, well, that's going to be plus 10. But notice we have an I times an I, so that's going to be an I squared. Okay, now let's simplify what we've got. So this is going to be, let me change that back to the right correct blue. Okay, so this is going to be, notice that, let's see, I don't have many like terms. Well, I do have a negative 6i plus 5i, so let's deal with that. So I have a negative 3, that's going to give me a minus an I plus 10i squared. But now recall, so I'll just make a note here, recall what we learned about i's. Recall that I squared is negative 1. So then if we use that fact, we say this is minus 3 minus I plus 10 times negative 1. Or negative 3 minus an I minus 10. And now if I combine like terms, I have a negative 3 minus 10 to come up with a minus 13 minus I. Now that's how you would multiply two complex numbers. Now, let's try one more example. Let's try this. Simplify. We're going to try another multiplication. Simplify. And let's try this. How about x plus 2i times x minus 2i? All right. Well, the process is just like we did above and have done before. We multiply, distribute through. So I have x times x to get an x squared. I have an x times a negative 2i to get a minus 2i. And then let's try another color, like magenta. Let's go 2i times an x. Oh, I made a mistake, didn't I? Let's fix that first. When x times negative 2i is negative 2i x. There. Okay, let's go back to our magenta. So now I distribute the next term. So I'm going to have plus 2ix. And then I'm going to have a positive times a negative. So that's going to give me a minus. 2 times 2 is 4. I times I is I squared. Okay, now we can go and clean this up. So here I have an x squared. But look at these. These are opposites. Remember, opposites just add to 0, so there's no middle term anymore. So now I have minus 4 times I squared, but let's use the fact from up above that I squared is negative 1. So negative 4 times negative 1. This is x squared plus 4. X squared plus 4. Now, you might say, wow, is that really a big deal? Well, it is. Let's see why. Because remember this. Earlier, if I'd given you the problem of x squared plus 4 equals 0, and I asked you to play the game, the problem is is that now you would have had a 4 in the top and a 0 in the bottom, but there would be no answers here. And earlier, oh, let's make sure we get that earlier, this was prime. This was prime, meaning it couldn't be factored and had no solution. But now look at what we find. Well, the sum of squares, and let's notice that you can write this is x squared plus 2 squared equals 0. So now with complex numbers, a sum of squares can now be factored. Now be factored. Now be factored. And it's factored as a difference of squares in the complex numbers, as a difference of squares. Wow. And there we have it. All right. And that is how you multiply complex numbers. Thanks for watching.